This is a GK Media podcast. Veronica Riccio, owner of Inner Power, thank you so much for joining me today on Garry Talks.
Thank you, Garry. It's a pleasure.
You're based in the UK, originally from beautiful Italy. We were speaking a little bit of Italian. Well, you were speaking Italian. I was speaking one or two words of Italian before we started recording. But you're in the UK now because you've set up a mentoring program, and it's very interesting what it is that you're doing, because I had a discussion with two clients yesterday where we're doing video projects for them for the sole purpose of maintaining the current staff, so showing off the company culture, but also trying to bring in new people as well that'll, I suppose, meet the company culture. But like, it's a huge problem in Ireland where companies are struggling to retain who they have in terms of talent and also bring in new talent. So talk to me about the work you're doing. And is this only since COVID times and the great reset, the great resignation that took place around the world that this has become so important now?
Yes, COVID definitely hit a spot. There was a lot more need to connect with others. So employees were a lot more receptive to solutions like mentorship. There was this need to not only connect with someone, but learn from someone else and create a sort of culture that was an alternative to what they were used to in their going to the office every day and how easy it was to talk to the right person and get introduced, etc. So what mentorship did in a moment like that was giving people the opportunity to be more intentional about how they wanted to talk to someone about their goals and finding the right person. And I think giving them the environment to create those connections was essential. So the work that I've done during the pandemic was, in fact, with a big Fortune 500 company. And it was a moment when there was a lot of focus around not only how do we create these connections so that people can learn from each other and we can get people to stay with us rather than walk away. Mm-hmm. But it was also related to issues that are closest to the inclusion and diversity side. So how do we get more female in leadership, and what is really preventing people from progressing, and how do we break this glass ceiling that prevents them from getting to higher leadership position. So there were different angles on how mentorship was used, especially during the pandemic. And the interesting part and the realization I think that many companies had in the past few years has been that we spend so much money attracting employees. We spend millions every year. And once we get the talent in, then we kind of leave them to their own devices. We do push learning programs to them. Maybe we invite keynote speakers and hope for the best. But there was not really anything in place that would really facilitate that growth in a way that's more structured. And I can give you an example of that. When the work that I've done and the frameworks that I've created were very much focused on the way human beings really learn. So if we're thinking about learning by themselves, so people who go and do a course and they absorb all the amazing content that you employers are sending to them, then there is the middle part, which is learning through others, and which completes the previous part. So do I have the opportunity to ask someone what it's like to do that job? And how do they run a presentation so confidently, or how do they speak to higher stakeholders? How do they manage stakeholders' relationships? And then the third part, which is learning through experience, which is another interesting part of the work I've done. So how do you get people to try out the work that they want to do, and not only use it to get better in their role, but also understand how does that match their ambition, and how are they going to grow within your organization and really find that purpose to stay, that the reason to stay, not only because they're hopefully well paid and hopefully have all the benefits and all the coffee in the world, but they're actually staying because they can see that career development path, whichever direction that is, and they are empowered to take ownership and really drive it, rather than just being told, yeah, go and drive it, and then hope for the best.
A lot of good points there that you made, and it's so true, where the companies do spend a lot of money to bring in the right talent, and then just they're there and they're hoping that they just kind of fit in and find their place, and every so often there'll be a token gesture of a well-being talk or something just to make them feel like it's a progressive company or whatever. But I think as an employer, if you once they settle in after a few months, you go in and you find out how ambitious this person is, how far do they want to raise that ceiling. It gives you great clarity within your business of how far you can take these employees along on the journey. But it's, if you go back to the trades of before, it was all apprenticeships. It was all showing someone how the job was done. How do you talk to the customer? How would you maybe upgrade a little bit more in the sale? How would you pull back, and how would you physically do the work then, and so on? Where I suppose nowadays it's changed a little bit, and maybe it's more focusing on turnover rather than actually working with the employees, which will ultimately benefit the customer by fine-tuning the training on an ongoing basis. So the employee benefits, but also the customer or client benefits from the service.
Absolutely. And if you look at the stats and how actually what is the reason why employees leave their job today, you will find that career development is one of the top 3. So it's very disappointing from an employer perspective, because you're thinking, what do you mean? There is so many jobs, there is so many openings, there is so much I can do to order pizza in the office and all the things that I'm doing, all the yoga and all the amazing things. And how can that not create the right culture that helps you thrive and find your path within this company? But it really, the programs that I've created, what they've proven is that not only career development is top of mind for employees, but it really helps get into the root of the reason why they really leave. One of the interesting parts that we worked on is the communication with their manager. So everything that's related to career somehow is not really seen as something that the employee can talk about with their manager. So what happens is that the employee doesn't talk to their manager about their career ambition, because that safety is not there, because individual development plans and tools like that are seen as something that the employee should drive on their own. So the work that I've done was really try and bring these people together and start understanding that the reason why you are thinking of leaving, it's something that should become more comfortable for you to talk to your manager about. And it doesn't mean that tomorrow you're going to just go to that one-on-one and say, I thought about it, I don't like this job, I just want to leave. But it's more about, this is where my ambitions are. I want to move to a different role in the next 6 to 12 months. And I want to learn the skills that are going to take me there. And I want to help this organization grow. And that in itself should be a conversation that, yes, is not incredibly easy to have. And that's why we give employees the tools to have those conversations. But it really helps you build that trust between manager and employee, so that those conversations become more natural. And the managers also got the opportunity to understand, okay, how do we move this resource? How can I help this person succeed? And then get someone in that perhaps has the ambition to do this role, to do this job. So some of the work that I've done was related to a concept called gigs. So the opportunity for an employee to go and be moved for a certain amount of time to a different role. So let's say that you're an accountant and you want to become a software engineer. So you're really excited about engineering. You want to learn how to code. So there will be the opportunity for you to go and spend 20% of your time or a day a week helping another team from the engineering side. So that would allow the employee to learn new skills and understand if that's the route that they want to take. And that in itself is a great opportunity, because it not only creates job experience, but it gives the person the understanding that it's okay to want to develop in a different direction that perhaps is not what my manager was thinking about.
And what would you say to an employer who would, say to you, well, I can't afford to lose my accountant one day a week?
Yeah, so the beauty of these programs is that they're very versatile. So the way it would work, you wouldn't just send your employee off to a different role for a day, but you would make sure that there would be someone to cover that time. So there is two ways in which a gig can go in that sense. On one side, your team can afford to have one less accountant for a day, so the rest of the team might absorb the work. The other side could be simply getting another gig within to cover for that gig. So it would create a sort of a circle, but the idea behind it is for it to be a short term. So it normally would be between 3 and 6 months. Sorry. And really give people the opportunity to try different things, and for managers to also cover for absence, for example. So if you're thinking about your team, one of the advices we have is for the people leader to think about their skills, not necessarily the headcount, but the skills that are needed to perform the job. So the question there becomes, okay, great. So I need someone who's a great accountant because they've got X, Y, and Z skills. Do any of my team member have those skills already or want to develop those skills, so they want to take extra responsibility? Or can we get someone who's interested in becoming an accountant to cover for that? So there's flexibility, and it's a program that has been very well received for things like either leave of absence. So that's another problem that it solves. So if you're thinking about a person going on mat leave within your team, then the question becomes, okay, do I have a headcount to replace this person for 12 months, for example? Or can I get someone can I get maybe 3 gigs or 3 people that go for 20% of their time to cover for that? Or you can get a gig that's actually full time. So not only the 20%, but the actual 100% of the time. So that person will move into your team for 12 months and then move back to their team. And those are all internal agreement and policies that can be created with the talent and learning department.
Personally speaking, I think, it is the way businesses should be going, because everyone who's come in working with us have ended up being very multi-skilled. And as a result, we've been able to expand our services and take on more clients, which ultimately increases the turnover. Because, for instance, one staff member came in and they were just kind of help me with the workload that was on my desk. They've ended up doing graphic design, editing videos, editing podcasts, running marketing campaigns, just dealing directly with customers. They're now helping expand the business into the studio element of what we're doing. But across the board, all the staff, from what they came in originally doing, but having the hunger to learn other skills, they now have a wide variety of a skill set. So the one thing I always say about our business that we enjoy working here so much is every day is different, because we have different skills. We're able to do different tasks, every day throughout the week, and it keeps it more interesting and innovative for us. But there's huge, you might, as an employer, might say, well, I don't know, really, this person came in as an accountant. I need an accountant. Where really is the value if I put them in software? I already have someone doing software engineering. But if you encourage that mindset of growth within the organization itself then will have that overall holistic growth mindset. And it is a positive ripple effect. You may not know what the end result is, but at least you know that your staff are happier because they're getting more fulfilled, they're finding more purpose.
Yes. And an interesting data point that we've seen is that when organizations are looking at their top talent, they're thinking, oh, well, I'm sure my top talent will be using this sort of programs. They will be finding a mentor. They will be going for a gig. They will have that growth mindset. But what is interesting is that once we compare the numbers on the people that participated and became top talent from the participation within the program in 12 months, compared to the number of top talent that they had before, there is a substantial increase, because all of this growth mindset and this willingness to try something new and being listened to by your manager and learning new skills that are going to help you, whether that's going to be in your job or beyond your job or to your next job. They're infectious, and they really do bring forward people that perhaps you did not consider high potential yet, but then became high potential because their performance has changed as a result of finding purpose in their work, of doing something different, or speaking to someone that are doing the job that they want to do, or simply are doing the same job but a lot better. And that sort of psychological safety that, for example, mentorship creates really enables people to think beyond their job as their 9 to 5, as their daily tasks, but more about, I want to be successful when I present to leaders the next time. Who can I ask to? Who's going to help me get there? Which kind of tips and tricks do they use? I want to know the practical things. And that's the beauty of mentorship. And that's why I got incredibly passionate. I'm a very practical person. So I just want to know the secrets. Like, how do you do that with a smile?
But when someone is helping someone else, that person who's the benefactor of that help is more inclined to then go on and help someone else too. It does have that effect. I remember, though, when you talk about managers, I remember we were asked to go and video an event before by an employer. And he was saying to me, we're having a day out. We're all going to a fancy hotel. There'll be lunch on for all the staff. And he was all excited that the staff were just going to be doing cartwheels here in the lobby of the hotel, that they were freed from the office floor for the day, and that they could go and mingle with other staff members, have a free lunch and so on, and have a day out. And when I arrived, so the crew was off videoing at the event, and I arrived maybe just an hour or so after it had started, just to pop my head in the door and see how everything was going. And I saw a room of everyone with the arms crossed, the shoulders up, and nearly frothing at the mouth. And it turned out that the employer's interpretation of how things were culturally in the business was a far cry from what they really were like on the floor. Mm-hmm. And there was someone up at the podium, and he sensed that there was anger and frustration in the room. And he had done this whole speech for 40 minutes, I believe, about what they were doing and how great business was and where they were going and so on. And why were people so resistant to that? So he was nearly blaming their attitude as a problem. And someone put up their hand and said, well, there's no growth in the company for us. The company has gone on and it's doing this and it's building this new building for such X million and so on. But we feel we're not getting any personal growth within the organization. And the person at the podium retorted back saying, there is personal growth. We're constantly offering you training courses. And she said, well, I applied for one of the training courses from my manager, and my manager told me I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be suitable.
Yes.
And everyone around the room started nodding their heads like they had all had a similar experience. And it was this thing of the employer was saying, look, I'm offering training. And there's people on the floor saying, yeah, we want the training. But there was that block in the middle where they obviously weren't getting the encouragement from the managers.
That is very common. And I'll give you an example of one thing I've seen in an organization where we had the chief technology officer generally sharing their experience as how this person managed to not only climb the ladder in a way, so not only the story of how she got there, but really talking about the fact that she didn't get there on her own. And, and it's really important for people to understand the struggle, and also to understand that not all of those steps were walked on their own. In fact, if it wasn't for that person that I've met, maybe I wouldn't be here talking to you all from a CTO chair. But one of the things that she did said, so from now on, every last Friday of the month, I want you to take 2 hours of your time and utilize them in learning whatever that's of interest to you. We are going to provide to you the tools and give you the opportunity, but more than anything, we're giving you the time to do that, which is very important. And you generally need to give your employees the permission to utilize that time to take a step back. I remember when I started my first corporate job, I still remember this, and my manager, and I was brand new. So trust me, all I wanted to do was perform and make sure I would pass probation. That's all I wanted. And I remember my manager telling me, every Friday, every single Friday, I want you to take from 12 p.m. onwards all the way till the end of the day. And I wanted to use it to learn a skill that's going to help you, whatever that's going to be. If it's helping you for your job, at the time I was working in sales, if it's a course on negotiation that you want to use on, at the time there wasn't LinkedIn Learning, there was probably something else. But she really wanted me to utilize the time to grow because she understood how important it would be for me to keep that interest going. And for me to be the one wanting to say, actually, I think I can use some negotiation skills training and I want to get better. So when you think about the employee's personal growth, professional growth, it all fits into the moment your manager gives you feedback. How is that going to be absorbed by the employee? And if it's not well received, can the employee get a second opinion, just like you would do with a doctor? And that's where a mentor comes into place. It's a person that the employee respects. It's a person that's outside. It's not their manager. It's not their colleague, and can say, well, actually, this is how I handle this situation when my manager gave me feedback, and this is what I think could be one of the possible solutions you can implement. So giving the time is extremely important. Understanding roles is also very important, especially when you're a people manager. There's just so much you can do to encourage your team to go and grow. You need to try and understand, you need to give them the options, but also try and utilize your own experience as much as you can. Share, when you had a coach, when you had a mentor, share what you're looking to improve. So really being a little bit more humble, I think, is the key.
And where should they get the mentor from then? Is it within the company or outside the company?
So all the programs that I've created so far were all within the company. So it really depends on the size and the different departments that are available. I have not yet worked with companies that are particularly small and maybe just have like 50 people in the office. I assume with 50 people would be a lot easier, but there is still a lot of value because what mentorship is about really is getting employees to have the chance to challenge themselves, to clarify what they're looking to do, and even to clarify what career development means. One of the interesting parts of the research that we've done is that career development is very individual. It's something everyone would have a different definition.
Okay.
And that's the way it's supposed to be. Like the people leader is not supposed to know that the definition is the same for everybody. And this is because this is what I believe, that's what you should believe, employee. It doesn't work that way at all. It generally is about giving them the tools and guide them through the utilization of these tools. So rather than pushing a LinkedIn Learning, is showing, okay, so this is how I leverage my mentors for support. This is why it is so important. These are some of the skills that I am working on and connected to the feedback that perhaps you give them. So there's an element of care and an element of being honest about being imperfect and utilize the amazing community they have around to grow.
And I think the care has to be genuine and authentic as well. There's no point saying we care if you don't care. It has to really come from the core of one of your core values in the business. So how does it work then? So innerpoweruk.com is your website. So how does it work? Someone goes to your website, you get in touch with them then, and help them set up a framework for bringing a mentoring program into their organization? Yes,
absolutely. It depends on the maturity of the organization. So if we're thinking about an employee audience, let's say, saying things like there is no career development opportunities, then we can look at understanding a little bit more of what that means. What have they seen with the resources that they currently have, and then look at what solution would work best. Mentorship is definitely a core solution that we utilize. Then there is gigs that we talked about, but it could be as simple as making sure that their mentors and mentees are trained. So we can offer workshops or keynote talks to get people to really understand what is the reason why they should care to begin with. So it really depends on where the organization is at. If they're early stages and they've never had a mentorship program, or their employees don't quite understand how to use it, then there's probably more work that needs to be done on the training side and getting people ready to then engage in a program and be matched with someone, or getting matching suggestions to meet someone. So that's an interesting starting point. Then there is organizations that already have a mentorship program. So it's understanding, with the technology that we have, can we maximize it and make it more effective, especially when they see low attendance or low participation. Then understanding why is that. So because the programs that are created with this very successful Fortune 500 company, I've really seen a lot. I've seen really what destroys a mentorship program, and I've also seen what makes it extremely successful, and which are the keys that they really bring these sort of initiatives to success in a timely manner as well. Because what we need to remember is this is people's time. It's everybody's time. It's not only talent and development's time, but it's that engineer spending time trying to go and meet someone and then having a bad experience and then never coming back. There is that leader allowing that engineer to go and find out and then come back with a bad experience. So there is so many different pockets of money being utilized inappropriately that can be maximized, that when you look at the benefits of these initiatives, we've definitely measured attrition rate being half, which is a huge thing. We've measured people moving faster from low performing, mid performing, high performing. We measure progression rate, so people getting promoted faster in the job that they want to do. But really, if you think about the savings for an organization, it goes way beyond the attrition rate. It really goes down to all the incorrect technology being used, all the time of people trying to set up these initiatives and giving up. So leveraging the help of an expert, or in this case, inner power, really helps you speed up and get to the point, and really just build a solution that works and get it up and running, and people are happy to use it. And that's what matters, because all the work that we do is very employee focused. We're helping organizations grow and retain their employees, but eventually the angle that we take, it very much is about the employee experience.
I have to say, Veronica, you really do know your stuff, and you have a wealth of experience as well, which I can clearly see from chatting with you today, and from a lot of the companies that I've worked with in the past who talk about company culture. Ask yourself, is your company culture just, as Veronica was saying, a pizza on a Friday and maybe a keynote speaker coming in every so often? Are you actually helping your employees grow their skill set and increase their purpose in an organization and create more opportunities for them and so on? Because, there has been research done as well that shows that employees will stay in a job more for the opportunity of growth rather than the opportunity just of income. Mm-hmm. They would happily work in an organization if they were getting less, but actually growing more and creating more opportunities for themselves, rather than just being on the big bucks and just being bored to death Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, just waiting for the weekend. So I think it's definitely an opportunity for people to look inwards. If they have an organization, what are they doing themselves to improving genuinely that employee experience? And as I said, look, I'm not the expert on it, but I know in GK Media, we have encouraged people to take on other roles and learn new things, and it has been positively embraced and has benefited the company by leaps and bounds since. So it's definitely worth getting involved in. But you do know your stuff, and you have worked with so many different companies that if people want to get the proper framework, advice, see the holes in the organization that they're not seeing themselves, and also gives employees an opportunity to talk openly with someone outside of the company to kind of give a clearer picture that maybe the employer or the manager doesn't want to hear about, it's definitely well worth getting in touch with Veronica's company. So innerpoweruk.com is the website. Veronica, thank you so much for joining me today on Garry Talks.
Thank you, Garry. This has been a pleasure.